Ready?
Ready.
Ready. All right, my name is Elena Johnson, and I am doing my persuasive speech on why school uniforms should not be implemented into our education facilities. For starters, I can see why people would say yes to school uniforms. If you ask around, the vast majority of adults will agree to it. And of course, children that have to wear them will say no. But coming from a place where I've been to schools where I do not have to wear uniforms, and I've been to schools where I do have to wear uniforms. And I've also been to schools, I went to a public school where we had uniforms, and then my parents took me out and put me in a private Baptist school, and we had uniforms there. And they were totally different. My reasoning is that, again, I can see why people would say yes to it, but their reasoning for saying yes and the reality of it are totally different. Like, the reality of uniforms are not what you would expect them to be, in my opinion. The first argument that everyone has for not wearing uniforms would be constitutional values. The First Amendment gives us freedom of speech, which means we are freely able to artistically express ourselves, religiously express ourselves, and politically express our viewpoints, as long as it's not affecting anyone else in a negative or bad way. The crucial stages in our life for learning who we are and expressing ourselves, I think, start in middle school and go on until high school. And I don't know about you all, but whenever I was trying to figure out who I was or whatever, a big part of that was in what I wore. The clothing that I picked out to wear daily reflected kind of how I was feeling or who I thought I was. So, I went through a stage where I wore band tees, and I went through the stage where I only shopped at certain stores and all of that fun mess. But in reality, none of that really matters. It doesn't really show who you are, but at that age, that's just like a process that you go through. And I feel like when you're told that you have to wear certain clothes and certain colors and has to be tucked in and everything like that, it makes kids feel like there's freedom of self-expression is being taken away. As I said earlier, I went to a private school, and it was a Baptist private school actually, and the uniform there, let me reverse first. The uniform at my public school was khaki pants, black pants, red, white, or blue shirt tucked in. It had to have a polo, and it could only have 3 buttons. Couldn't be all the way buttoned up or anything like that. You could wear whatever kind of shoes you wanted to, but if you had belt loops, you had to wear a belt with it. And I know a lot of people argue that whenever you don't have uniforms, certain kids wear certain brands, and the lower class families can't afford that. But at the public school I went to that had uniforms, there were still kids shopping at Hollister and American Eagle and everything like that, and then there were still kids that had Walmart clothes, so they were still getting picked on and still getting made fun of just the same. If it wasn't for the brand of their shirt, it was for the type of shoes they were wearing or stuff like that, and they still made the uniforms what they wanted it to be. Like, there were still kids sagging. I remember the principal carried zip ties around, like pull their pants up and zip tie them, which is pretty funny to me. But at my private school, our uniforms for the females were plaid skirts that came past our knees, and we were allowed to wear black socks, but they had to be like high socks. They couldn't be the little short ones. We could wear pretty much any kind of shoes we wanted to, with the exception of like stilettos, obviously, if pastors taught you that. Oh no, that would not be acceptable. And shirt-wise, we had to wear the blue shirt that had the CBA logo on it, and that was pretty common. The cost of it though was expensive. I feel like if you go to a private school, you're expected to spend more money on uniform though, because it's a private school, everything's more expensive there. But if you're in a public school, some of the parents don't have that kind of money. They're not going to be willing to go out and spend $20 on a uniform shirt. And also, I believe that it would be difficult to enforce in public schools because you have more children apt to rebellion, I guess, rebellion to standardization. And it's kind of more of a band-aid to violence than it is a solid fix. Like gangs and stuff, peer pressure economic, social barriers, that stuff is always going to exist. And you can do whatever you want to try to take it away, but they're always going to find a way around it. Kids are always going to be bullied for certain things. It's never going to go away. And lastly would be identification, association with the school. Certain schools have certain type of uniforms. So if you're wearing the red shirt and khaki pants, they're going to know you go to that school, and that could be more grounds for them bullying you. And that concludes my speech for why school uniforms should not be